See how much more of a mess I can make here. Kind of realize this paper is just a little bit more toothy than I like, but I'm committed to finishing it, so be it. All right. Just a personal project. So I've never really done comics before at all, and so I took the script from Blade Runner, and this is part of the opening scene. And so where Leon is talking to Detective Holden, and it doesn't go very well for Detective Holden at the end. So, but it's 7 pages I put together for this, and part of it is there's different things going on with this. Like I wanted to do one double page spread, and so I got that here, which is what this is. So yeah, anyway, see how it goes. I'm trying out some different inking things on here too, so it's not trying to avoid being too precious with it, but I should have finished this a while ago. So I think we're going to dedicate the evenings this week to finishing this, hopefully. So just getting started, trying to warm up a bit on some of what I think are easy areas. Hopefully they are. I hope so. You know, it's not a huge number, but in terms of pages, it's mostly for me to test things out because I've got that concept project I'm working on, and I've thought up stories I'd like to do with it, and I think comics would be a great medium for telling those kinds of stories with it. And so, but again, I've never really done them before, so I thought it'd be a good idea to try my hand at a couple of these before I do that one. Well, especially while I'm working on the still working on the script for that. So But yeah, definitely feel like I've learned a lot doing this. So um, nothing else, more respect for the people that really do this, not just tourists like myself. So hopefully it'll be satisfactory. Maybe I'll offer it up as like a PDF or something people can get if they really, really want it. Good evening. Yeah, I'm working on like my portfolio project I've mentioned a few times, and I think once I'm done with that, and that's all mostly being done digital, which kind of makes sense for its context. But I think once it's kind of done, I'm gonna switch back to doing kind of traditional media work. I actually kind of don't like the word traditional media. Maybe analog media is a better word. I even bought a set of these Kohinoors here recently. Found a used set on eBay. Seems looked like only one of them had ever been used. It was missing some little tools for it, but I think with all the AI nonsense infecting everything right for the moment at least, I think it definitely kind of reopens the interest in real media, like non-digital media, and I think that kind of makes it more compelling for people because there's no hiding anything when you're working traditional media or real media. That was something that I was at Lightbox, and my notes from the presentation, or I guess the interview with Doug Chang, he's the creative director at Disney for the Star Wars movies, and he's been a concept artist for decades. Since sometime in the 80s. Since I was a little kid, basically. And he said he likes to see traditional media sketchbooks from artists because you can't hide anything in those sketchbooks. That there's no stabilizing, there's no liquify tool, there's none of the tricks that you use in digital to kind of protect yourself, which I thought was an interesting comment. That's what he likes to see when looking at people's work. Hello over there, Henry Nguyen, over on the YouTube side. How are we doing? So he's definitely someone who would have gotten his start, early on when, digital wasn't an option. In the 80s when he was working on like Ghostbusters and Back to the Future, those kinds of movies. And, there wasn't anywhere for digital artists like myself to hide back then. It was all marker and gouache and airbrush and those kinds of materials. And I kind of have a working theory, and it's not an absolute thing, but I think that every time you lower the bar of entry into a profession, whether it's through better tools or just in general, I think you introduce a certain amount of kind of lesser creativity into that area. And I think I definitely would include myself in that area to a certain degree. That you know, because I trained myself early on, because I was fascinated with the digitals, but trained myself early on with those tools. That they definitely make up to a certain degree a lack of training and skill that are needed for non-digital media, for real analog media. And it's definitely something I focused on my own. It wasn't anyone made me do it or anything. It was it was kind of new back then when I was a student. People were just starting to do digital painting. Had only been doing it for a little while. And sometimes I've been lately wondering how much I left on the table by making that my focus early on. Even though I did a lot of traditional media stuff, oil painting and for portraits in school, and figure drawing with charcoal and all that kind of stuff. But I also wonder if that maybe explains to a certain degree the not the absolute, but the general lack of quality from a lot of media today. That that we've got people who haven't trained themselves as intensely as previous generations, and maybe we're leaving a lot on the table because we didn't have to. That's kind of a working theory I've got sitting in my brain at the moment. I don't know if it's valid or not, but it's just something I wonder about, because then I look at the response some people have to all the potential with AI, and I see a lot of delusion behind that. A lot of people assuming it's going to do things it's not capable of doing. Which is kind of, in my mind, it's kind of sad, that people will so willingly sacrifice themselves just so they can I guess lose out on opportunities to explore their imaginations, while believing that they are actually fully engaged with it. Yeah, well, have a good night. Appreciate you stopping in. Good evening, everybody popping in. Don't mind me, just, old man yelling at the world. Yeah, but with that theory, it's like I've always drawn with ink, like sketched with it, but I've never kind of ever been trained on kind of doing finished work with it. You know, not that there's like one way to do finished work necessarily, but there's general practices that are common and helpful, and common techniques that are useful. But I was just kind of just always sketched. So, again, part of this project is there to help me figure that out, to a certain degree. And so I imagine there'll be some inconsistency with these pages. It's partially why I stuck with the blue line printout of the pencils instead of the erasing out the original pencils. And that way, if I wanted to, I can go back and reprint a part or a whole page and redo a panel if I want to. Good evening.
Alright, I think we're going to maybe do that face.
Good evening. Good evening. How are we doing on the socials tonight? Need inspiration, huh? If you want to feel better about yourself, this is definitely the place to be, because I'm probably going to make some mistakes tonight, so. Ones that you probably would not make, right? But I've had a good day, working all day in the studio. Hello, Professor Kelly. Good evening. Oh, as many as I can squeeze in. I get started at 6 in the morning ish usually. Though it's a little bit later the last few days. Dog has a digestion issue. Hopefully he's over it. But it got me up 3 times last night, so see how things go tonight. He hasn't wanted to go out very much today though, so that's good. Little breaks around lunch and dinner. But yeah, I like to go all day. I was working on my teaching site this morning. I said I need to make that a priority again. I might have broken a couple things going in there, but get them fixed up over the next couple days. And then in the afternoon, working on my portfolio project. So that's mostly digital. And then break for dinner. And then back on working on this in the evening. I think that's going to be scheduled for the week. Except, of course, Tuesday, Thursday, that's when I teach at the university. And then next week we have all off due to Thanksgiving break. So hopefully get a ton of stuff done during that week in terms of portfolio, etc. that I want to get done. So I've got a bunch of things I want to do. So the time isn't a bother at all. It's a little annoying having to go to sleep at night. Generally, though, I found it's not hard to put in hours like that when you've got something you want to do, and B, you know what that is. And so right now I have a lot of clarity on what I want to do. So putting in the time like that's just a lot of fun. Canadian, is that some kind of birth defect? I mean, with the being that far north, you got a lot of nighttime. Oh, that's right, Thanksgiving. Yeah, you guys have it at a different time than we do. I don't remember. I think you have it is it October? Is that when Canadians have Thanksgiving? I mean, schedule-wise, I think that makes more sense even here, because of school. Because basically, we have Thanksgiving week off, and then we have 1 week of classes, and then finals week. And I kind of wish they just started school in the 2 weeks earlier in the summer, rather than handling the schedule that way. Then we could end the semester Thanksgiving week. And everyone could go home for a nice winter break. Ah, see, I remembered something about Canada. I did walk past the Canadian Embassy in D.C. About a week ago. Lots of big flags hanging out there. Um, but George Washington decided that this was to designate the last Thursday of November for Thanksgiving Day. So I think it was him that designated the day. It's one of his early things he did, kind of designated a day of Thanksgiving. Just don't remember if it was that day or some other day that he designated originally, but yeah, it starts getting dark. I'm in Virginia, so a little bit further south, and not deep south, but far enough north that we do get the time change. So and one of my favorite YouTubers is Canadian. Foresty Forest. He's a van lifer who goes on hikes with his dog. I like him because he does something purposeful. Getting those peeks in with his dog. Oh, okay. Yeah, Forrest, he runs all over the BC area, and then usually in the winter, actually, he takes off for like Utah, Nevada area, a little Colorado, mostly Utah. Um, there was another one, Van City Van Life, and I guess he got his start doing van life in Vancouver, but he just really just strikes me as someone who's more homeless and having fun than someone who's doing something interesting. Just kind of vlogs his daily life. So I haven't watched his stuff in a while though. And then there was Hey, well, I what I've been doing is someone over on the YouTube side was commenting on hiking with their dog, but not drawing enough. Um, I have a plein air kit, so going a landscape painting kit, and I've turned my reason why I'm interested in the van life thing is I converted my Xterra, my an SUV, into a mini camper. Started that a few years ago. It's essentially done. There's a couple of things I'd like to do that are kind of more cosmetic for finishing it up, and something that I broke somehow that I want to fix. But it's essentially done, and it anyway. The point of it was to be able to like take me out on, be able to like drive out to some relatively remote location and stay there for a week, and or more, depending on what I want to do, and that's what I was doing most of October. I wasn't even home. It's part of the reason why this isn't done yet. I wasn't home from the beginning of October through last weekend. Haven't been here for like any 4 or 5 day weekend. So the first weekend of October, I was in the DIY area of the Overland Expo East. So it's like a big convention for people who are into the overlanding van life hobby for camping and all that. And so I was in their DIY exhibition. It's kind of fun, like sort of like an art show almost. And then I was camping for 2-3 weekends. I think just 2 long weekends, but that's where I take my plein air kit and I go out to a location and stay there for a week or more. And out there with the dog. Usually he gets one good hike in, and then he's good for like the weekend. Like he doesn't want to go too far after that. He's 8, so he's not really old, but he doesn't, he's not young either anymore. He's small, so he's not, probably going to age as quick as other dogs. And then I went to Lightbox at the end of October, and then I was up at my sister's watching her dog while she took her family, her husband, and kids out to go visit my parents. So I was there for like I think 10 days, something like that. But she lives close to Washington, D.C., so definitely took advantage of that. Went up there and spent a couple of the Sundays. Because on Sunday you can pretty much park anywhere, except I made the mistake of going up there the one Sunday that was Veterans Day. And it's a little harder to find places to park. Yeah, the Starlink thing seems really attractive to me. If I had like an extra, I think what are these, $500 or something for the Mini? Something like that. And which isn't that bad. I don't have it on hand at the moment for that. Actually, I'd rather get a 180-degree awning for my vehicle. If you want to see what I've done, you go over to Xterravich. Xterra, so XTERRAVICH. It's kind of a play off my last name. On Instagram. And you can see I made a whole separate account just for that. But yeah, so it's great. So I can go on location. I can, depending on the weather, if it's cool like it is in the fall, I can toss the dog and leave him in the car, take off for for a good chunk of the day. And what's nice about doing that, kind of as a plein air or landscape painting practice, is if you kind of stay in one spot, you can kind of find a whole lot to paint. One of the mistakes I often made when I first started doing landscape painting was always trying to find a new spot rather than kind of milking a spot I had found. And so that often meant I spent hours and hours looking for something new when there was plenty of opportunities to have spend the actual time painting rather than driving around right where I was at. But I was too dumb to consider that. And but now I know better. So I often like to find like a spot and then go back there multiple times. Because one of the things you'll see if you start to do that, you start to see kind of more opportunities than the one you may have initially spotted, and it kind of opens your eyes to what's possible. Looks like I got a loose hair in there. Yeah, so I did that a bunch in October, which was a lot of fun for me. Oh. Yeah, it takes a while. One of the things that, yeah, my name's Peter Sakovich. Um, but, yeah, one of the things in terms of like calming your mind down, one of the things I've found is just having like a thing that you want to do and getting started with that. So, it's like one of my productivity tricks is to stop somewhere where I know what I'm going to do next. So, like if I'm working on this, I know there's a specific thing that I want to do next, and it's getting close to when I plan on stopping, then that's like a good spot for me to stop because I have a clear idea about what I want to do next. And then what I found is that if my mind's all over the place when I sit down to work the next time, is that if I remember that that's what I was going to do next, then it's real easy to jump into things. Is that Serbian? It sounds Slavic. It's actually Lithuanian. So once upon a time it was Sakavicius. But you'll find the name Sakovich a lot in Poland, Sakovich, and you'll find it in Belarus, I think. But yeah, the town my family came from out of Lithuania, I think it was Punskis. It's now inside of Poland, so they were like southern Lithuania, and so definitely kind of that mix down there. Actually, fun fact: the art historian / critic Simon Schama, who's dead now, his family came from that same town. Yeah, but that's one of my productivity things is like if you have real clarity on what you want to do next, that's like a really good spot to stop. Because a lot of times when you're tired, you're just not sure what to do. And if you're not working on anything specific, then it's a good idea to have some kind of study project. Like I've got a morning study project that I start off with every day. And lately, what I've been doing is working through a bunch of art books that I've bought over the years, that I've looked at and read parts of. But I decided, hey, I've told students over the years to do this one practice, and I hadn't really done it. And so this started a few years ago, and then it went on pause for a little while. But basically, I'm taking a lot of the art books that I have, and I'm reading them and copying them. So doing the drawings in them, or if there's exercises, doing those. And that's been a really good way for me to warm up. Yeah, well, have a good night. So, like lately, I've been working through Tara Whitlatch's book on the science of creature design, and so I was kind of in a bit of a hurry before with previous books, but I decided to go ahead and kind of slow it down a little bit for this one. So I'm not in a big hurry to like work through it. It's usually not getting much further than a page or two at a time a day. So that's enough for me. That's enough to keep me busy in the morning, though, for a few months. I think the book's about 180 pages, so it'll probably take 3 or 4 months to fill it up. And if I were just doing the pencil drawings, then it would go a little bit faster. But I'm kind of doing rough pencils and then inking them, kind of working on my inking technique at the same time. Oh, that's what the cats do, right? They decide. They help you get clarity on what you're allowed to do. Never have that problem with my dog, though. He just he likes to lie on my feet, but not on my desk. It's too high up. He's not very big, but he's not that small either to crawl up on the desk. Yeah, I actually got to meet Terrell Whitlatch at the Lightbox Expo. Gratefully, I'm allergic to cats, so I don't have one. I like cats, but I really can't live with them very well. The pet sitting I was doing for my sister, she has a cat. I was mostly hiding the whole time I was there, so I only had like a little bit of allergies because it didn't really come out very often because of my dog. He's not violent with cats, but he is very cat curious, and so that cat was avoiding him assiduously. But I did see her when I was in parts of the house where, the dogs weren't at the moment. But she's a nice little cat, a little tiny black cat with a white star on her chest. So she's called Starlet. So her dog was kind of a distraction. He's really big, but thinks he's really small, or acts like it anyway. So he tries to play tug of war with my dog, who's probably a third his size. He's a Dane. My sister's dog's like a Dane slash golden retriever. So he's a big boy. Not as big as a Great Dane, but still, And so he wants to play tug of war with my dog, who's much smaller than he is. And my dog was actually trying a bit because we was just the three of us there most of the time, minus the cat wherever it was hiding it. And but just doesn't work out very well for him. He's just too small, and the other dog, doesn't realize he needs to play as if he's as if he's playing with a smaller dog. And he just doesn't get it. Which I don't blame him. He's just a big boy. But yeah, see my dog every time. He's like, he's just too big. Did try doing some wrestling with him. But the big dog just wants to play tug of war. So what are you gonna do? It's too big. Yeah, mine only goes so far. He's a little guy, so he's got short legs, and he's not like a high energy type dog. So um, that's why I say we get one really good hike in during one of these camping trips, and he's pretty much done. Well, you got to. There's apps for that these days, right? To tell you how long a hike will take, approximately, or what the distance is at the very least, and the elevation changes. I have a subscription with All Trails, which is nice because you can see, all the photos and things for the location, which is great for plein air painting. So you kind of have an idea of what features are going to be there, in addition to the usual, whatever forest or desert you're in. Now, once I finish this double page spread, I got one more page left, and then touch-ups, and then it'll be all the way done. So, I think if I pushed on this week, I think it's possible to finish. Yep, have a good evening. Thanks for popping in. And do your part to make me internet famous, right? Good evening. Good evening, people popping in and out. Good evening. Thanks for coming in. So far, the doggy hasn't made any requests. That's a good sign. Hopefully, his digestive system has settled down. Good evening. Good evening. Alright, what are we doing next? Filled in most of what I wanted to fill in. Good evening. Yeah, hopefully I don't break it, right? That's the hope. Or too much, you know. I assume I'm going to break it in some ways, but you know. Yeah. And it's for me. I consider this a learning project, so I'm not overly invested. But And so, just I've never done really comic pages before, so it's different than just doing a single illustration. Yeah. So I think one of the things I've learned doing this is it not only should maybe I've heard people what they do is they print out a small version to kind of plan out their major dark areas with like a marker, and I could see doing that on a larger project. But hopefully it reads okay. Um, yeah, so for me this is a learning project. I've never really done comics pages before. Maybe a little dabbling when I was a teenager. But a lot of my students are into it, and I've been working on a portfolio project where I've kind of come up with some stories that would work. I think would work well with it. Maybe I'm just being delusional. I need to finish my script and run it past some people, but um, but yeah, I've thought of some stories I'd like to do in comics. I think it'd be a great medium for it, and so wanted to do a couple of these like test short stories before I jump into that. Kind of get some of this practice, but it's taken me a while to get to this point on this one, just because I've been distracted. But yeah, so always new things, right, to learn. Test my storytelling skills, see where they're at, see where they can be better. Yeah, I've been looking at a lot of people's inks I like and seeing maybe what I can adopt from them. Yeah, got a bigger shot of that eye too. I've got one where it's like this big on one of the pages. So it kind of plays a major role in the story. What time is it? 8:30.
Yeah, they're just over here.
Yeah, so there's the opening page. That's page 2. So there's the eye thing going on, kind of playing around with it as a design element. Some of these pages are a little messier than others. Need to go through and kind of do an overall finish, but that's the page after this one. Needs a little love on this one too, but that's where I'm at so far with this. But part of it is like it's like an assignment for school the way I'm doing it. So like I wanted to do a 2-page spread. I wanted to hand letter. I wanted to have interior spaces, and so that's why I used the script I did, and a lot of what I'm doing with it. It's kind of a self created assignment to help me learn some things. And I know it won't be perfect, but I know that I will learn a lot doing it. So, but I'm kind of looking at different inking techniques for different people whose work I like. Whether it's the 90s people that I grew up on, or the more recent ones like Sean Murphy. Trying to find some kind of balance with that, very technical, clean art, and the more expressive stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it depends. Sometimes style doesn't always line up with the story, right? And so it can be a really incredible artist, but maybe they weren't paired with the right story. Um, and sometimes they are, right? But some, there does sometimes happen where maybe that wasn't the artist for it, or maybe the vision got lost along the way. That kind of thing can definitely happen. I know with mine, the only person to blame will be me, but yeah. But for this one, the only person to blame will be me if there's issues. So I think I was gonna paint these fan blades black. Go ahead and do that. And of course, color makes a big difference too. It's like, it was actually another example, the one where I didn't really like it as much. Maybe I'm incorrect on this, but when was it Richard Corbin did Hellboy? Really, anyone not Mignola doing Hellboy, just it never kind of reads great for me. I wish he'd stuck to it as being the only artist on it for his run. But yeah. Like he had a good guy who was like kind of close to his style, doing like a lot of the end stuff, but it isn't quite the same thing. Just I guess he's just finished a new book though. He posted some picture of a stack of pages he just finished. I guess he's been cranking on some kind of new book. It's not. I don't think it's Hellboy. It's something else, but looks like it's all him. I feel bad that they just have a hard time making Hellboy movies. To me it seems like it should be pretty straightforward, but apparently I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, the Del Toro ones are pretty good, so I don't know why they stopped making those. And then they tried to make 2 in the last 2 years. But Yeah, I mean, like the story ended off. I think they did a good job, finishing off the story and everything. It's just, I just would like it to have been Magnola. And people get busy. He's got a whole bunch of things he's managing, but at the same time, this is kind of, would have been nice if it was just him. Yeah, because I haven't watched the newer ones. I know there was that one with the guy from Stranger Things. People didn't like that one at all. That one, and then the newer one, I've heard is okay, but it's just apparently obviously very low budget. Which I don't mind as long as it's good. I've Yeah, they've got like three different series they've worked through, right? Three different timelines. There's the Del Toro stuff, that one from a couple years ago, and then the one that just came out. It's like, it just seems like a property that shouldn't be that hard to make into something popular, or at least within budget. Alright, I think this is the one I want to use. Чем это? О чем это? Это Blade Runner. Это открытие сцены, где Леон встречается с Холденом. Личный проект. Yeah, Del Toro did a lot of stuff that he's got a very particular style, and I think it lends itself pretty well. The characters weren't the same as the comics, though, so it wasn't quite. Is this the test now? Yaguchi Palazivila. Let's see, am I using the right size there? That one's definitely too thick. Oh yeah, I think it's definitely the red one we want. You're in a desert, walking along in the sand. I don't know that I'd hand letter future ones, but I wanted to do it this time to get kind of a sense of how things are spaced. Should have put that yes somewhere else. I don't know how it got shifted over like that, but oh well. Yeah, I have the little Ames lettering thing in here, but I know like most time these days, they figured out after the fact, and I don't know that mine's all that good, but again, this is a learning project for me. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm discovering this, right? Because I've never, like I said, this is a learning project for me. I don't know how I messed up this scan. So this is a printout of the pencils, and I don't have the letters on the crease here in my pencils, but I messed up something when scanning and printing out these papers. All of a sudden, you look down and see. And what does Leon see? Or what does he think he's supposed to see? Everybody remember what Leon sees in Blade Runner? What they tell him he sees? And see, but he interrupts and says, "What desert?" says, doesn't matter what desert it is. Okay, so he's a tortoise. Doesn't make any difference what desert.
Let's see, just make sure I'm getting these words right.
Doesn't make any map deserts. Oops, don't fall down. It's completely hypothetical. There we go. Yeah, there's a lot of talking there, especially this part right here. Once he gets into talking to him, yeah, it's pretty intense little scene. It's just two people sitting at a table, right? This part has the most dialogue. Like a lot of it, there isn't that much. But how come I'd be there? Maybe you're fed up. Yeah, it's a great, it's a great scene. There's a lot of good stuff in that movie. It's like he hasn't even gotten to the tortoise yet. So you look down. They're talking about the desert. Look down and see tortoise. It's crawling toward you. There's this what's it called? What's the name of that test called they're doing in there? The Voigt-Kampff test. I wonder if it's like actually based on any kind of psychological studies on getting responses out of people, or if it's just, completely made up for the movie, if there's something similar to that. A tortoise? What's that? I got a little bit lost with these word balloons. This needs to be isolated from this one. Oh, what a turtle is. Yeah, Voigt-Kampff. Yeah, Sid Mead is a legend really for this. For a lot of things, but especially for this. It helped really define. It's like I was. We were having we had a meeting on Friday for the faculty, and we kind of were pointing out how the designs for these movies in the early 80s, whether it's this one or Alien or Predator, what a difference those original designs made for those films. So like what they originally had for Predator, played by Van Damme actually, which is funny, the original person who's going to play it, but what they had for his costume just looks ridiculous when you compare it with what they came up with. Or the same thing with Alien. Like I think there was a Ron Cobb design or something, and you compare that with what they got out of Geiger. And if they hadn't gotten that, the difference that would have made for what we think of those movies now, like it just would have been ridiculous if we hadn't got what we did. It's like there's certain artist designs that really opened up what was creatively possible. And I know it's great. Well, the Voigt-Kampff was to get elicit an emotional response, and so they used that in the movie to test the responses that in order to identify the replicants. Which I always thought was kind of interesting because if they have those genetic markers on other animals, why don't they have them on the replicants? Because basically the replicants, because they're so young and they have such little life experience, and they don't respond emotionally the same way that a regular human does. You make these questions. The question that really gets Leon going, though, is he asks him about his mom. You never want to go there with a replicant, right? Because they don't have a mommy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's a gallery guy, right? I'd love to see originals. I think that'd be fun. He uses like mixed media, right? Yeah. I mean that made his whole probably made him world famous for that design in the movie being as popular as it's become or was too. It was such an iconic design. I think he already had some things that were similar to it already. So he just basically brought that to the movie. So happy the dog isn't. Yeah, he's kind of fixated on the fusing of the male and the female. Right, that was kind of his shtick. I know his house had like a little train set and a bunch of weird stuff going on in there. Yeah, it definitely requires a unique mind for that kind of thing. It's one of the reasons why I think AI is such a problem, because it just assumes that everything should reduce to the a same kind of level, to the mean. Yeah, I'm sure it's like a. It's, 'cause I think he didn't he live in a regular town. Why is that, Leon? Yeah, so I think there's things like that make the argument that you don't want to rely on these algorithms, because it doesn't create anything new. It just generates. They're just questions, Leon. Oof. Ah. Oof. All right, where was I? We just got the lettering in. Now let's see if we can. What to fix up in here? Yeah, I've increasingly become 100% against it. I was kind of ambivalent about it. I didn't really care, and then started running into people that, because I teach at a university, and suddenly they're trying to force AI stuff everywhere all at once, and I find that to be very suspicious. Not just for art, but for everything, and that just smells to me to be a big bubble just waiting to burst, and there's a whole lot of marketing speech that I find to be very, very dubious. And so, and then we had an incident at my university recently where a professor replaced student work for some AI generated images because I guess the student work was unsatisfactory, and he used it was used for a social media post, and students were really upset about it, and I recommended a particular course of action that was not taken, but one that was a roundtable for discussing people's concerns about the implementation or the prevention of implementation of these systems in the education of students, and it was a bit of a mess. I spoke on the side that's against it because I feel like I've got a list of very significant concerns that are not being dealt with. Okay, Papel Usas. This Hunt 102 pen, if that's what you're asking. Yeah, sorry. I think what's going on is this is a way of juicing stock prices, and because so much of the world economy revolves around stocks because of the way that we handle our money. So our money is artificially inflated by central banks, and so in order for people to actually make money, they have to invest in stock markets, and because you can't save, there's always persistent inflation, so saving doesn't make any sense most of the time, and but I think a lot of driving is just stock prices. You see like Adobe pushing it even though their users don't want it. They've been really vocal about it. We've seen Microsoft pushing things that we don't, that nobody wants. I saw a little post about from a Microsoft executive where he's talking about how to be able to plan your whole life for you. And it's like, I don't need that or want that or have any interest in that. Or their Windows 11 snapshot tool, right? And it's kind of weird because like they're talking about cost savings, at least as far as the creative stuff goes, but so it seems to be in the foundational idea making phase, not the production phase. It seems to be the thing people are most excited about, as far as I can tell. And I don't know. It seems like that's usually the least expensive part of making anything is the ideation phase. But I hear all these delusional attitudes about the art that people say, "Oh, well, we're going to be the curators of these systems," and I'm saying, if they continue along the development that people say they're going to have, there won't be any need for that. It'll just be it'll all be self-contained. Like the systems won't need outside output or outside input. So that I think is silly. I also think there's people that seem to think that they have the ability to get what they want from these systems, that they're going to be able to curate, the outputs and get the results that they want. And I just think that's silly as well, because it's there's some well-known psychological effects that humans have, one of which is the Dunning-Kruger effect. And it has to do with kind of overestimating one's ability with certain kinds of with skills, basically. And they did a test of American estimations of their mathematical abilities versus the actuality of it, along with I think it was Japan. I should look up the original test and see what it says, just so I can state it more accurately. But they found that Americans, in contrast with their, my test results, overestimated their ability to do math. So they thought that they were very excellent at it, whereas the Japanese were more humble. So they felt they were not that good at it, but they rated very highly compared to what they thought their abilities were. And that's kind of that Dunning-Kruger effect. And I think, I think use of these systems will convince people that they're much more clever and much more skilled and much more tasteful than they really are, when in fact, I think they'll reach a point where they won't know the difference between getting what they want and accepting what they get. And I don't even think they'll know when that happens. I think they'll be convinced that they're being really clever. Yeah, so I hear a lot of kind of delusions from artists about it, and but the real harm I see with it isn't even so much the loss of employment. That's certainly relevant. Loss of jobs in different fields, but for me, it's that loss of creative potential, because these systems, they don't invent anything new. They just generate. They kind of reassemble things that have already been made into new things, or into generated things, not even really new things. And the law so far has been really, really, really clear. There's no human author involved, so you can't copyright it. So it just seems to be short-sighted for a lot of people to kind of jump into these systems, and there's just a lot of fluff about what's going on, and I think it's very dangerous for institutions like my university to jump on this AI train especially when it looks like right now we may have actually reached the limit for what they're really capable of, or approached the limit. Because there's a couple infrastructure things a few infrastructure things they're running into. One is there's only so much data in the world that they can harvest and keep track of and process into their training data, and so that's one big issue. And so they're basically starting to run out of stuff that they can shove into the training data. Another is just producing enough hardware. So the production of video cards that for the GPUs that do the systems, they've gotten incredibly expensive, and yeah, so that's the other issue too. That's one of the bigger issues that people have, but I'm talking about these infrastructure ones. So one is the amount of data that they can access that's new is getting smaller very, very quickly, because they just dumped so much into it really fast. The chip thing is, they can only go so fast with chips, and Moore's law ended 20 years ago, and even though they can certainly make faster chips these days, they can only really get so fast, and so they're kind of bumping into those limits. And then they're also bumping into not having enough electricity. So based off of projected electricity usage that they require, they're just going to start running out of electricity to write emails for you, or etc. Generate images. And so there's some companies like Microsoft and Meta that are looking. Well, Microsoft especially wants to reopen 3 Mile Island just to power their systems alone. Like they want to fund it so that it'll just be used for them essentially. And this is kind of crazy. Like I'm all for alternative power sources like nuclear, generally speaking. But and Meta was planning on doing something similar. They were building a server farm near a nuclear plant, and they were going to get like a special deal to get priority with the power. Their plans were put on hold though due to a rare bee living where they wanted to do their server at. So, we can thank Nicolas Cage for that one. So, those are just like some practical issues. There's other things to worry about too, like the amount of CP in the system and the Lion data sets. They claim they've cleaned them out of the Lion sets, but I'm dubious. Yeah, you can Google that. Look it up. That's what Microsoft says they want to do, which just seems kind of ridiculous. To power an email writing, image making planner. It just seems like because the claims I hear for using AI for any of this stuff is there's two of them that I hear when people talking about why they think it's a good idea. One is efficiency, so they claim it's more efficient for art, and that's mostly what I deal with is the art stuff. But more efficient at certain things, which it might be sort of, but at least as far as art and design go, art and design are never efficient; they're effective, and I think it's kind of a straw man to say that it's more efficient. And then the other argument they'll make is that it's more imaginative than they are. And I hear that one all the time too from people that I know are very creative and imaginative. People that have got great designs and have come up with their own work that's really incredible. But they'll say that it comes up with things they never would have come up with, which is the same thing as saying that they lack imagination. And in my mind, that's kind of a you problem. Like, I've got so many things that I want to do that it's just kind of ridiculous that I would ever have any inkling to turn to systems like that to somehow come up with better ideas. Yeah, so it's the thing is I don't want to be an expert about this. So that roundtable we had, there were certain things I didn't necessarily have the answer to, but the other presenters who were on the pro side really didn't present anything that dealt with student concerns. And I was really disappointed by that. I brought up some of these things that I've talked about here, and so yeah, so there's these concerns that I have, students have, and I know coming out of that meeting, and the students I've talked to, they felt like their concerns are not being taken seriously, and they should be. The students are our customers. They don't necessarily get to dictate everything at the school, obviously, because they're coming to us for a certain amount of guidance and organization and certain kinds of experiences. But at the same time, if you're looking at making drastic changes to how their education works, you should have really compelling answers as to why you're making these changes beyond, we think these toys are really neat. So, yeah, it's it's not a compelling argument, and especially when I bring up the issues that I brought up, and honestly, I'd rather just not talk about it at all. Like, I like the people I work with. I respect a lot of them, if not all of them, and I can understand people's interest in it, but at the same time, I see this just as being a big bubble that's waiting to burst, and it's going to leave all of these people who have invested in it just left holding the bag. And I don't think it's going to play the role in society and creativity that they're anticipating. I think they're way over presenting what's possible with it. What's appealing? So one of the things that I have noticed as a trend is that those that are very supportive of it tend to lean more on the production side of art making. So like your visual effects people, your animation people, like people that are strictly involved with the production of entertainment product. So not the people that have to come up with the ideas, but the people that are the people that execute on those ideas. And I think part of what they like about it is that they don't have to come up with their own ideas. They can just get enough information with the generated imagery and text and theoretical concepts, that they don't need to be creative, that they don't need to come up with their own ideas. They can just execute on the ones that have been given to them. There's some people that look at it kind of as maybe a transhumanist philosophy, where they see this as being kind of the next step in human evolution. But the computing power and the data required for true general intelligence, true what's it called, AGI, artificial general intelligence, is like it's so far from what we have even theoretically possible at the moment that it's just kind of ridiculous to assume we're going to get there. Some of the CEOs of these generative AI companies are saying we're really close. Like in the next couple of years, we're going to get this this artificial general intelligence. But that's a divide I've noticed a lot. There tends to be three levels. So that production artists, they tend to be on that far end where they think they're going to be the creative directors, or they want to be able to kind of take advantage of the fact that these systems are more creative than they are. And the second level, I have noticed, like creative people, like illustrators and that, they see it as being a useful tool for reference, which I don't think it is at all. I think it kind of represents a form of anti-reality, so it can give you images that you can use as reference, but if you needed to be specific for something like a specific person or time period, costumes, other things like that, like it could be completely wrong. And if you don't know what you're looking at, if you're not an expert in that, then you could make some pretty severe mistakes without even realizing it. It definitely represents a kind of intellectual laziness. It's like, half the fun of like working on art stuff is discovering things along the way, and I don't think they realize that every step in the development of a project is important to it. It's not just the verbalized idea and then the final executed image. That's not what the idea is. The idea is everything from the very beginning to all the mistakes you make that could become the thing that you really want, and by kind of sacrificing at that in the name of some kind of idea about efficiency, you lose out on all of that. And so yeah, there's just amazing to me that that this is kind of lost on them. But part of it is, I've kind of dealt with somewhat adversarial environments about this before, where it wasn't that anyone was mean. Everyone was very polite and cordial. But the last art school I was at Ringling, I was in this department, and the whole department was going down the AI route. They're motion designers, and it's a really good program. It's run by great people. They got really good teachers. The students do really well out of the program, and then all of a sudden this AI thing appears, and they want to jump on it like really fast. And I was the only person in the entire department that voiced any concerns. I bring up these concerns, it would completely derail their conversations, which really wasn't my intent, but I noticed that was a phenomenon that I would say, what about this? What about that? What about this other thing? Why aren't we, why are we jumping on this so fast? I kind of found out through conversations that to a certain degree it's out of fear. So they believe that these systems are the future, and that if they don't adopt them, then their students are going to fall behind. And the thing is, like, if these systems are so easy to use, which I hear from the same kind of people, then what gets added to their education by putting them in, even if they have to use them eventually anyway? If these are the kinds of things you can learn in an afternoon or a little bit of a couple of days, it just kind of gets in the way of the students really learning like really valuable things. So yeah, so those are like some of the concerns I bring up. And there's never any answers. In fact, at that roundtable, the professor who had replaced the student artwork with AI work, he was there to comment, and he said nothing the entire time. He was even directly asked if he had anything he wanted to add, because we were there because of choices he had made, and he's a big advocate for it, and he had nothing to say, and it was bizarre. So I'm yeah, but if you go to my university's website, they have a big page there now all about how they're excited about AI, and I've heard a credible rumor that Meta is investing heavily in the school, and that may explain their sudden change of heart about implementing things. And Meta is a company that went down the metaverse route for a while, spent $500 million on nothing. Yeah, well, it convinces you. Not only just gets rid of the learning process, it convinces you you're an expert, and that's that Dunning-Kruger effect. Like, it convinces you you're good at things when you are in fact not. So yeah, it was definitely his moment to, like, maybe, and honestly, there might be something I'm not understanding. I generally not really been paying too close attention to it, other than just kind of a tangential thing. But following that meeting and the lead up to it, to a certain degree, I've suddenly kind of felt an obligation to get more informed, and nothing I've come across so far has shown me anything other than what I already thought. And maybe that's my own bias at work, but I keep waiting for people to come to me with some kind of argument about how my concerns aren't relevant, or definitely in the if there's something I don't understand, like, no one has ever pointed out something to me that my concerns aren't valid, or that there's issues I should be paying attention to, and they haven't come up. And I'm definitely open to maybe there's, because I've been watching it come in. I tried out a few of those little systems. There's like an app on the iPad for a while that I thought was interesting. I played around with it a little bit, but like eventually just stopped using it, because beyond like that first couple of tries, because it just wasn't anything interesting for me there. But yeah, maybe that's what someone needs to be just trash talked back down to the earth, right? But the I'm definitely open to being wrong. It's just that everything I see is saying otherwise, and the people that advocate for it aren't really dealing with the concerns that I've expressed. And maybe the world will adopt it, and maybe it's something I just have to accept that that's going to be the thing. But I have a feeling this is just another one of those gold rushes, that because so far the only people making any money off of this are the chip makers, Nvidia, and they were doing bank gangbusters off of the NFT thing and off of cryptocurrencies. It's definitely helped them keep their profit margins up when those things have faded away to a certain degree. Not the cryptos have gone away, but like China banned the mining of crypto inside of China, and so they it slowed down the sales there. The NFT thing helped push it back up again, and then the metaverse stuff also helped with that. But so yeah, that's kind of the issues that I see. And again, I'm definitely open to being wrong, but it's like one of the professors there, he's like, well, didn't you see the Paris Olympics? They had these AI generated images that they used for all of their Chiron text and things for the Olympics, and they weren't that great, but they got them out really fast and really cheap. And I'm like, well, is mediocre really our target? Is that what we're looking for? Is mediocre work? Yeah. Maybe that's a spot where it has a use, right? There's there's not usually a lot of creativity in IT. It's just about stability, so it's doing the same thing consistently. And AI systems have been around a long time. Like they're used for spam filters and antiviral systems. But that's different than generative AI. That's not the same thing as making images and writing stories and dialogue and that sort of thing. That's a whole other department of questions. But like I said, I can see there being application for certain things, but again, those tend to fall outside of my area of expertise. So, like, I'm not an IT person, so what do I know what's going on over there? I'm talking about, primarily about human ideation and art. Yeah, so those kinds of systems have been around for a long time. I've been watching the image stuff come up over the last, I guess, 10 years. I remember that the first thing I really noticed was there was one where you could like draw like a brown shape and a green shape and a blue shape and some, I think, white shapes, and it would kind of make landscapes. So that was the first time I really noticed it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I never used it for anything, but I was like, oh, it's interesting. And then there was like a face generator one that people thought would be handy for like character designs and things like that. I don't remember what that one was called, but yeah, it was definitely interesting. I won't deny that it's neat, but I never used that one either. I just never got around to it. I think part of it is it just doesn't fall. I just don't think it's that interesting. That it's, because it is fake. Yeah, it's a whole. It gets put under the same label because they are, adversarial pattern recognition systems, I think is one way of describing them. But yeah, so that's a whole other can of worms, as they say. Um, it's like your, like I said, like your spam folder or your antivirus or. But you look at like the negative effects it's had on the algorithms in social media, right? So suddenly you don't see things from people that you want to see things from, or you're relying on social media for your work to get in front of the people that have signed up for your systems, but the wisdom of their AI systems have hurt a lot of that for a lot of artists. And it affects their ability to get the work in front of the people that actually want to see it, because there's some arbitrary standard that they've invented that their AI algorithms are using to assess who gets to see what. It's kind of made me want to, it's made me back off posting a lot on social media. I should get back to it now that I've got kind of a little system set up with Nightshade and on my computer and all that, but I just haven't gotten around to regular posts again. I have been doing a ton of work though, so on and off live streams, but yeah, so that might be useful. I do wonder about that stuff though, because in a lot of ways these systems are very opaque, and I do wonder if it's kind of get in the way of like the ability of say police officers or doctors to be competent at their jobs if they rely on these AI systems. Like they might find diseases and things that they wouldn't otherwise, but because of the way these systems work, they won't necessarily find new ways of doing these things. But those are definitely areas where I can understand its application. But I do wonder a lot of times what gets lost as a result of relying on these systems, or false positives or whatever, just because there might not be enough data in the systems for it to work properly. But again, those are areas that are outside of my sphere of general interest. Hello. Oh, you're talking to me. Um, yeah, I can see that, right? So, unless it's infallible, and no human meets that standard either, right? But that's why we haven't seen really autonomous car systems completely on the road yet, right? Or I remember a few years ago, Elon was bragging they were going to have these semi trucks, right, that could deliver everything everywhere. These big giant cyber trucks. And where are those? Because part of the problems they're running into is just so much data, and the systems can't handle that. It's just we're kind of reaching to a certain degree, the limits of what our current computer systems can do. And so, yeah, but I've kind of decided that maybe I do need to become an expert on this subject more if it's going to be, a point of argumentation in my department, and feel like I need to advocate for the students. I'm shocked that I have to in the way that I am. Like our department head, he was kind of getting annoyed with me after the meeting, but he's like, "You've never even used what's a content aware fill in Photoshop?" And I was like, "No." Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true, right? There is like a flying car. It's like a small plane that you can fly out of like a regular road off of, and its wings will fold up. But a lot of the projections I think they're making over the capacity of AI are just so far overblown that it's just ridiculous. Like there was a post going around yesterday. A couple of people sent it to me actually with Ben Affleck talking about AI stuff and its impact on entertainment. And it was interesting because he kind of accepted himself and actors from immediate replacement, which is not what you're seeing from companies like Runway. Like they seem to say that they're going to be able to replace actors in no time at all, based off of their claims. But I've noticed that a lot too with people is they seem to accept themselves from the impact of the systems, especially when they're supportive of them. But that's one thing I've noticed a lot is that they'll pretend. Um, um, yeah. So I think, because they think, well, like you look at Ben Affleck, he's a filmmaker, right? He's not just an actor. So he's looking at this, he's like, oh, I can finally make, this movie I've always wanted to make, and it won't cost very much, based off of what he thinks is going to be the effect. I don't think any of these people are necessarily stupid, but he's made some good movies. What was it, Gone Girl? That was pretty good. What was that movie about thieves? I think he did about like Irish thieves in Boston or something. But James Cameron's been jumping on this, which is funny because of the films he's made. Yeah, where it's easier to support it when you feel like it's going to support your goals, right? I don't know that it will, but if they think it will, then they're more supportive of it. I just don't. I just wonder, about that unending flood of sludge that we're going to get by people being able to generate certain kinds of content with it. Like, it'll be almost impossible to find things that are really good if it does what people think it's going to do. Because anybody's going to be, if it works like they say, and I don't think it necessarily will, but if it does, anybody can produce anything, and that's going to be horrifying. Like, there was a film put out recently on YouTube. It's about a little robot, and it's farming or something, and it's awful. Like, it's not well written. Yeah, well, I mean, they wanted to bring back, old actors. They're looking at licensing people's faces, like Harrison Ford. And what does that do for the potential of new faces, right? Of new actors. So I think this has to connect to that one. And then this one has to connect down there, so I need to open that up. Conversation got complicated here. But I think one of the benefits, if it does become popular, is work with real media. The analog media. Never liked the word traditional media. I think that's a bad description. But because it kind of implies that its value is that it's old. But I think in fact that it's real, tangible media. I think that could become a lot more interesting for people. And I'm definitely all for that. I've been doing a lot of digital stuff lately. That's mostly for my portfolio project. But once that's done, I want to be mostly doing this, real media stuff. I even bought an airbrush recently. I've never used one. And decided to give that a try, learn how to use it. Get back to painting with oil and gouache. I mean, I paint with gouache for landscape, but like doing some concept art with it or illustration with it. So I'm okay with that. I think I think the fact that the AI stuff produces as much as it does, it just proves that its marginal value, its marginal utility, is very low. And let's see, there's some other spots I wanted to clean up. Got other ones too, I know for sure, but cause I've never used one. When I was in school, all of my teachers were kind of traditional illustrators, but they didn't use like airbrush. They were acrylic and oil and mixed media to a certain degree, and they did like children's book and magazine and book covers and those kinds of things. And when I was in school, it was right when digital was taking off, and so I had to learn a lot of that on my own. But yeah, we didn't learn to use airbrushes or like these. I only bought these recently, but these Kohinoor rapidographs. I bought a set of these off of eBay that was lightly used. And they've been really fun to use. But again, those things weren't part of my training, which would have been part of that a long time ago. But or even inking like this, it wasn't part of my education. Like I said, I wanted for some certain things to try out. Whether it's like putting some splatter down, or I've seen techniques with alcohol marker brushes people use for it. Like I saw some stuff in Doug Chang's book Mechanica, where he's like showing off some older techniques. So, yeah, but I'm excited to try that out. I bought it back actually for my birthday, and I've been so busy with my little portfolio project that I haven't even cracked it open. Um, ah. Yeah, so like, when did you go to school? So, like in the 80s or early 90s, or I think you've been in here before, right? I think we've chatted about stuff, but yeah, I teach this concept design drawing class, and I've been debating to switch back to all traditional media in there. Students would get upset because you have to buy all the supplies, but they're sitting there with a $1,500 iPad. And don't get me wrong, I love the iPad. I think it's a wonderful bit of tech, but we had I attended a lecture, or rather a discussion that Doug Chang had with Neville, which is something Neville. He's like other concept artist. I don't like his stuff as much. I think he makes his work too busy. But he's been like this guy's the recent designer for a lot of the newer Star Trek stuff, and I don't like his designs at all for that. Neville Page, I think is his name. But he was interviewing Doug Chang, who's been a long-time concept artist in Hollywood, mostly at Lucasfilm since the prequel movies. So he designed like the droids and other things for those movies, and ships and locations and things like that. But he was commenting that he likes to look at artists' sketchbook when they're applying to work there, like physical sketchbooks, like pen and ink sketchbooks. He says because a lot of the newer tech allows you to hide your lack of ability. So the stabilizing tools and the editing tools and all these things, they can kind of get you to fake your skills. And early 90s, yeah. So yeah, but that's he. So he doesn't. He's like he's less concerned about your finished work. He wants to see your actual like physical pen and ink, pencil sketchbook, and not the not your finished portfolio, because he can learn a lot more about you from that than other means. Alright, let's see. You're walking in a desert. Is this a test now? Yes, you're walking in a desert. What? What one? What desert? Alright, that's connecting properly to there. That goes over to there. This comes down to, it doesn't make a difference, but how come I'd be there? And so that needs to disconnect there. I'm getting lost in this text. That needs to, let's see, you see a tortoise crawling. That's right, I need to close this one off. How come I'd be a tortoise? What's that? See, that needs to be blocked off. Open that up. Alright. Yeah. Well, it's easy to hide your crutches. And like I like a lot of those tools. Like I like the iPad app. I like a lot. Infinite Painter. It has like these really nice ellipse drawing tools in there, perspective drawing grids that snap things correctly into perspective, and it's really handy to use. But I also know how to do like real perspective, and I actually like that more. But yeah. But I think we're going to call it there for tonight. It's 10 p.m. So appreciate everybody that popped in. Maybe back tomorrow. Just depends on how I'm recovered after teaching. Tomorrow's my long teaching day. So we'll see. Hopefully I'll get a full night of sleep and my dog won't have any issues tonight. So he's had some digestion problems. It's been fun. Or not. But yeah, thanks everybody that came in, and we'll catch you all next time.